This is an Undiscovered Legacy production and proud member of Pod Nation Media Network.
Hello, Skoobelievers, and welcome to episode number 114 of the Undiscovered Entrepreneur Get Across the Start Line. And it's me, Skoob, coming at you at whatever device you have to be listening on. All right, Skoobelievers, I just finished my first ever speaking engagement. It was amazing. I'm really glad I was able to do it, and they've already invited me back for another one. So I'm looking to put that speaking engagement here in the podcast. So stay tuned for that if you'd like to hear that. Hear me speak and probably a couple other people speak to along with it. I'm going to get right into today. In today's episode, the entrepreneur we're talking to is John. John took a $40,000 investment and turned it into $11 million in sales. He opened up a single outdoor gear store in Florida, of all places, and turned it into a 23-year success story, proving naysayers wrong when everyone said, "Where do people climb in Florida?" His specialty retail business generated over $11 million in gross sales from just 30,000 square feet, building generational customer relationships. We're going to talk about that in the podcast, that kept the business thriving for another decade after he sold it. Now, John isn't just another business owner. He summited 12 peaks over 20,000 feet and used the mountaineering experience to create $30,000 adventure trips to the Andes. He literally stood at the curvature of the earth, witnessing his customers cry tears of joy that they couldn't shed because they'd freeze, and turned his fear of not knowing his own products into life-altering adventures for his clients. Now, John, after a devastating accident in 2012, left him with a traumatic brain injury. John didn't just recover, he reinvented himself in the digital space with a mission of impacting millions of families worldwide. He's now leading a multi-continental team working on an educational curriculum and aiming for $3 million in sales, proving that entrepreneurs can rise like a phoenix from the greatest challenges. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to John. Salutations, Skoobelievers, and we are here again with another amazing entrepreneur. Today we're here with John. Hey, John, how's it going?
It is going great, Jesse, and I'm proud and honored to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to be on the Undiscovered Entrepreneur Get Across the Start Line.
Yes, anytime I can share stories and tips and things that can improve people's lives and businesses, I'm there. So even if you did it at 8 o'clock, I would have been here. Midnight, I don't know, but yeah.
The earlier we kind of go,
I know. Till we get that first cup of coffee, then it's life changes.
Oh yeah, everything. Yeah. Ding. Okay. So I'm going to ask you kind of a semi-serious question here. Okay, John, ready?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Fire away.
All right, here we go. Are you a Skoobeliever?
I am. I'm one of the most diehard Skoobelievers, and I just started today. I'm what you would call a neophyte Skoobeliever. So,
oh my goodness.
But I am. So, and I will be from here on out. So thanks for the question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. Thanks for being a Skoobeliever. I super appreciate you. All right, so what I'd like to do here at the very beginning is let's get a kind of idea of who you are, what your entrepreneur adventure is, and how you got across the start line in your entrepreneur adventure.
Great. How limited in time are we, Jesse? But I grew up in Florida, west coast of Florida. My dad was a businessman who hailed from Pennsylvania. My mom was from Florida. They met at college at the University of Miami, go you. And they settled in Sarasota. That's where I grew up. And I really was interested, not in business, all through middle school. I was more interested in writing and in art. And so I had this full ride scholarship to the University of Kansas when I was graduating from high school. And my dad pulled me aside and he goes, "You're not going to make any money in art." And he was in business. He says, "Why don't you think about doing something else?" So I said to myself, I was working part-time in a restaurant washing dishes and had been for a few years. And I thought, well, you know what? I really like the restaurant business. Maybe I'll go in the restaurant business. That's the wrong way to probably pick and choose a college degree, but that's what happened. And so I went off to FSU. I'm a diehard Seminole. You can imagine the battles I had with my dad in our household. But so I graduated with a degree in business. And I had 10 or 11 job offers being in the restaurant business. And I got to pick and choose. I could have been in the hotel business, resort hotels, but I chose the Chart House restaurants. And I went, well, I was in California, San Diego. A lot of my buddies were going to Chicago and Denver, but I was out on the West Coast and went through my training there and then got my first restaurant. And it was St. Thomas and the Virgin Islands. And I'd never been really outside the country, but it was a new experience for me to run a restaurant on an island where sometimes you can't even get supplies. The food has to come in. So I was a corporate manager for the Chart House for about 2.5 years, and it wasn't working for me. The corporate thing, I was more of always wanting to improve systems and look for solutions, and that didn't fit the corporate model. So came back to the States, made contact with a lady who had been a recruiter and a friend of mine and a manager, and she got me a job at another restaurant company. That was Steak and Ale. And I thought, well, maybe if I change companies, things will be different. And it didn't take too long to realize that I wasn't so much a renegade as I was a team player, but I didn't really fit the corporate model. So what was I going to do? Didn't have any money to really start a business. And so I decided I would go into the Army, serve my country. And I did it backwards, and then come out and see where life would take me after that. I had visions of grandeur of going off to law school, which didn't pan out. That's how life is. So I joined the Army. I served my country. I rose up the ranks very quickly, got out, made the transition, got reacquainted with a woman that I had known 10 years previous, and the universe connected us. And so I wasn't going to go back in the service, which I'd been thinking about. So we decided that we were going to open a business together. And so what we did is we pulled together our resources. I actually borrowed a little bit of money. And for $40,000, we invested in a specialty retail business that we developed selling boots and backpacks and climbing gear on the west coast of Florida. What are we doing? People were telling us, you're not going to make it. Where do people climb in Florida? Where do people hike in Florida? Isn't it hot here? There's no mountains here. And so we heard all the naysayers and we did it anyways. We can get into that through the questioning, Jesse, later. But what we ended up doing for a $40,000 investment, we were in business for 23 years. We rolled a little over $11 million in gross sales at a 3,000 square feet. And I sold the business, and it went on 10 years after we left. And we'll talk about why that happened too. But so here I am. So then in 2012, I get a bump on the head, and I was involved in an accident, and I had a traumatic brain injury, and I had to deal with some personal issues that I didn't deal with when I was much younger. But it took a lot of time, took a lot of courage to finally face my demons and to get back on track. So for the last decade, I've been operating in the online world, business world, and it has been completely different from bricks and mortar, but we can talk about that. And I'm really involved in a couple of projects now that have the potential to change the course of humanity. And I don't say that lightly. We can talk a little bit about that, but I really want to share things about you to help you on your startup venture. But that's where I'm at. I'm here on your show, and I'm a Skoob believer. Where else should I be but here, right?
This is where we put you. That's right. You know, it's funny that you used to work at a restaurant. I actually have a night job at the same time I'm doing this too, and I actually work in a restaurant here in Branson, Missouri, as a server. So not as high end as you, but it's funny that we have that kind of common thing.
Absolutely. And I love servers. The servers had it going on. I remember here I am, college guy, college degree, making X amount of dollars, and waiters, they were rolling in it. They had no responsibility but to their shift and to making money and to helping the business go. But no, that's great. And it is. It's a common ground thing that we've got. Yeah.
And I'm an Army brat. I was born at Fort Ord Army Base when it was open, way back.
Wow.
So
is your dad still alive?
Pardon me?
Is your dad still alive?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's
yes.
Good.
You know, the thing is, you came across a lot of the naysayers, especially when you were doing something that didn't quite match up to what people would normally think about. And it's funny because at the same time, I wanted to start a karaoke business in the middle of COVID. And
Awesome, man. I love that.
yeah. And it's like, okay, so I'll start things up now. And by the time I'm ready to go, COVID will be over. Obviously, I was wrong. But, it's interesting to me how we can have so many naysayers and so many people around us saying, this isn't the right thing to do of where you're at, or it's not the right time to do something like that. But it explodes on us, even no matter what they say.
No, you're absolutely correct, Jesse. The thing about we all have a life to live, right? None of us asked to be born, but we're here and we might as well make the best of it. And so guys like you that are innovative and think of solutions and ideas when we're trying to adapt and overcome a certain situation, that is a keynote foundational aspect of a startup entrepreneur. So, that the ability to find a solution to something that's going on. Now, for me personally, and it took a while because we don't like to say no. The naysayers, they were starting to create doubt in my mind just by a simple thing. Where are the mountains at in Florida? Really? People climb here? There's no national parks here. We're the Appalachian Trail's in Georgia, but I heard it all. And what they started to do, so I had to box them out, is they started, not that I was rude and ornery, but I just didn't listen. I guess metaphorically, I boxed them out. Oh, that's great. You're right. We'll see what happens. And when I started running trips to the Andes, and each trip was a $30,000 gross sale, then everything changed. So I was able to take that naysaying and take people on climbing trips, 10 years into the business. So naysayers are good because they can give you more drive. And not that you're doing it for them. It's something that you need to do for yourself. An interesting thing too, when we were mentioning college and how, sometimes the gifts we don't even see right in front of us. I had a marketing class in the business school. And I remember the teacher, here I was all 19 years old, thought I was like J. Paul Getty and this and that. And one of the required readings was Amy Vanderbilt's Book of Etiquette. And I thought to myself, why in the heck would you have a book of etiquette in a business marketing class? Well, let me tell you, that book helped me in so many of my professional relationships. It was unbelievable. And today, there's not a lot of etiquette. Just put it on, turn on the TV. There's so much unetiquette that I can tell you, if you learn a little bit about etiquette, and this all has to do with relationship building with your customers and clients. If you learn a smidgen of etiquette and practice it, you are going to set a stand. You're going to set the wheat from the chaff. It's so cliche, but you will show up on somebody's radar when you practice that. I don't know why I put that in there, but something you said made me think about it. But yeah, so naysayers, we got to have them. They make the world go round, and they make solo entrepreneurs that much stronger in our convictions.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And the thing for me too is I'm come across my naysayers as well too, but I like to think about it just like, oh yeah, watch this. And then actually bam, there you go.
Yeah.
And who's it? Frank Sinatra said that the best revenge is massive success.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then whenever I come across a naysayer of some way, shape, or form, that's kind of where I go to. I'll listen to what they have to say, but I'll take away what I want to take away from it instead of what they want me to take away from it. And I think that's more important than anything else when you come across somebody like that.
No, you're totally correct, Jesse. And that's what we need to do when we have that naysayer. Listen. Good listeners or good leaders listen. But it doesn't mean you have to do or believe what they say. That's your life. That's your business. It's not theirs. You're the one taking all the risk. Risk it because the rewards are so great. We can talk about that. But yeah, just like self-help or startup books. There's so, and you keep asking me questions that make me think of stuff. Go to the bookstore. Yeah, self-help books and startup. They're like in competition. There's so many business schools or business books, and they're all great books. They're great people imparting knowledge and things that can help you. Sooner or later, you got to get off the X, what we say in the military, and just do it. Experiment. And we'll talk about that. I think we're going to talk about perfectionism.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my 4 hurdles to stop. But that actually leads me great into my next question that I'm going to ask you here is, in everything that you've experienced so far, what do you think stops a lot of entrepreneurs from actually getting across the start line? What do you think actually stops them from starting?
Great question, Jesse. Thank you. We are our own worst enemy. We've heard it all of our life. It's us as individuals. We're the ones that stop it. I don't think there's all the naysayers or any comments that can be made, or even a lack of funding, or you can't find the right lease if it's bricks and mortar. I just say we're the greatest obstacle. There's going to be good days at startup, and there's going to be not so good days. And in startup phase, there's probably not so many good days because everything that comes up is another challenge. You're already schizoed out because it's a startup. You're trying to do something that you've never done before, and you just have to drive on. So that's the biggest hurdle, is ourselves, and it's all mindset. If you think or believe you're going to do it, and you have the right mission statement and the right touches of resilience and perseverance, you're going to find success. And sometimes it might not be what you think it is. It could lead to something else, what you're doing. Who knows?
Yeah, that's actually how I experienced getting started on my podcast. The karaoke thing obviously didn't work out. So instead of trying to throw my hands up in the air and say, okay, I'm not meant for this, I tried to figure out why it didn't work out for me. How come things didn't work the way I wanted? And that actually led me into podcasting. So even though I didn't start with podcasting, like I said to myself, I'm going to be a podcaster. That's not what I did. I said, I'm going to do this, but I pivoted over to this because I found this instead. And this was actually, I put the karaoke thing aside and said, I love podcasting even more. So let's just do this for now and see where that takes us. And 3 years later, here I am.
That's a perfect example of an entrepreneur always on the lookout for opportunity. And we can take mud and turn it into clay bricks and build a house, right? That's what entrepreneurs do. Somebody asked me a question about what I've been doing lately, and I told her, and this is a person that's in business, and she got indignant. She said, I didn't want a sales pitch. And I won't mention her name. I said, she's a well-known influencer. I said, but you should realize in your position and what you espouse, I wasn't being rude, that if you ask an entrepreneur what they've been up to and you haven't seen them in a while, you're going to get a sales pitch or a variation of a sales pitch, because entrepreneurs are excited. We're excited about what we're doing. And if somebody wants to know, we're going to give them a sales pitch. Not that we're trying to sell them. Maybe we're trying to convince ourselves. But I just thought that was a strange answer. And she got mad at me for giving her the answer to her question. And so keep that enthusiasm. That's part of what will get you over that hurdle when things like that come your way. Maintain your enthusiasm. Yeah.
Yeah, people got to know that if you're going to ask us what we're doing, we're going to tell you. And we're going to tell you everything because we're excited about what we do. And that's one of the things I find that's so awesome about being an entrepreneur is I'm always excited about what I'm doing now and what's coming next. What's the next possibility? What's the next big thing that I want to tackle? It may sound like to the untrained ear that we're trying to pitch you, but no, we're just talking about what we love to do.
Man, I appreciate that comment, because when you love what you do, all human beings, entrepreneur or not, are going to radiate this enthusiasm. And that, I'd have to say, what are top 10 traits of a startup entrepreneur? And I'd have to say, after this discussion, it would have to be enthusiasm. That's got to be one of the top 10 traits. So if you have enthusiasm, don't let the naysayers knock you down. And if somebody asks you a question, you tell them everything that you need to tell them. That's who you are, and they ask the question.
That's right. Yep, and they just have to be ready for the answer, because sometimes they don't know what they're getting into.
No, they don't. Sometimes we don't know what we're getting into.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. So earlier you said that we're getting in our own way when we're getting started. Now, is that what you were experiencing when you first got started? Did you feel like you were kind of getting in your own way?
Not generally, but if I let something sink into my head, there'd be a doubt. But I was convinced early on, Jesse, that no matter what, I was going to make sure that we opened the doors to this business, and I was going to make sure that it was going to be successful. I literally, we talk about no fear, being fearless and all that. And it's tough. It's tough when your whole profession or your whole life ahead of you might be contingent upon the success of your business. And what I found that most entrepreneurs, and I hope it doesn't happen to anybody who's listening, but they go through rough times financially, and many of them have been bankrupted before. But out of that bankruptcy, they rose like the phoenix again. They're so cliche, but entrepreneurs have that amazing perseverance and resilience that we're going to somehow stand on top of that summit being a successful business. And it would be great because you talk to all these entrepreneurs. So I would imagine that you hear similar stories.
I hear all kinds of different types of stories. And it's so great to hear every single one of them, because we could all relate to them in one way, shape, or form when we're listening to these stories and understanding that, oh yeah, I've been through something similar than that too. And that's why I like putting this podcast out, so we all have that capability of listening to other people's stories and kind of relate and maybe find some tools that we didn't have before that we can use to overcome obstacles, or even just be a part of the story.
Absolutely. Great. It's a great idea. And it's so helpful because as entrepreneurs, as you know, and especially in the digital space, we run into so many experts. It needs to be done this way. It needs to be done that way. Build it and they will come. And what we end up finding out is that it's not necessarily that way. That might be their experience, but until we go through it, we really don't have a baseline. What we have is a great heart and a great idea and the energy and enthusiasm to pull it off. I know that something good comes out of everything that's not so good. And like you said with the podcast show, the karaoke thing sounds awesome, man. What a great idea for COVID. But that could have been fun, but now you're here, and that's how the universe, if you believe in those kinds of things, that's how you and I vectored on the show today. Somewhere in our lives we made a decision to be here. It may have been a decision in business school. It may have been you on the karaoke stage, but we're here. So every time we run into an influencer like you, or a podcaster, or somebody that really has a great heart, we have to take advantage of that. You've already taught me some things here in the short 10 or 15 minutes we've been talking, and it's nice to know that I'm not alone. So remember that you're never alone.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you for calling me an influencer. I don't that's not what I'm not used to that, so I guess that's something I got to get used to. Something that you kind of said, the word fearless. Now, me personally, I like fear. Fear is my friend. I want to be afraid, just because I know on the other side of this fear is going to be something great, as long as I could have the mental capacity to overcome this fear. I don't want to be fearless. I want to feel that fear, but that fear and excitement come from the same place in the brain as everything else. So having that fear isn't a bad thing. It's pointing you in a direction. I kind of use fear as my Yoda, if you want to kind of put it into perspective there.
No, that's a great perspective. I was looking at my Facebook feed early this morning, and one of my Army brothers, he was a Special Forces high altitude, low opening jump guy. I mean, this guy was the real deal, Green Beret in Vietnam. And he shared a photo. He lives in Montana, but he shared a photo of some bear tracks, recent bear tracks in the mud in the same direction he was hiking. And he said, here's a Vietnam veteran, combat guy, seen all kinds of stuff. He goes, I just got a sign, and I think I'm going to turn around here. And so my point is, it's probably a good thing. It could have been a mama, who knows what, but it was definitely a grizzly bear. There's healthy fear, and there's what I would say, there's wise fear. And I would say the entrepreneur is that wise fear. Somebody that's looking at a bear track, that's healthy fear, or vice versa. What I'm trying to say. So I'm not saying that, and I love the fact that you get motivated by fear, but look at fear, because if you exhibit fear, now turn it around, because the bear, that doesn't make you a wuss or anything. It makes you pretty smart. But fear is just the unknown. But if you're frightened by the unknown, and none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow, 20 minutes from now. That's not a way to live your life. I would say embrace the fear, because if you don't, fear will overtake you.
Mm-hmm.
And you may just hang out on the lazy boy over the weekend and not make those calls or that podcast. If you were scared and fearful of this what I'm trying to say, fear will stagnate us. So when I say fearless, probably a lot like you, Jesse, but I'm also a lot like my buddy who saw the bear track and decided to turn around. There's a healthy dose of fear that we can have too, both
Yeah,
ways.
we don't want to put ourselves in physical danger. That's a whole different kind of fear. That's a kind of fear
Yep.
that protects us. But the other kind of fear is the fear that shows us the way. That's what I kind of look at when I'm doing business or anything else for that matter. And that's why I use an acronym for fear: false evidence appearing real. It's not something that's going to, if it's not something that's physically going to harm us, it's something that's pointing us in a direction, and if we overcome it, there's something great on the other side.
Absolutely. And that the stoicism, which is something I've been looking at recently,
Hmm.
it says that the challenge is the way. So I can just slide that word in there, Jesse, and take it from you. Fear is the way. If you don't overcome your fear, you're never going to make it. It's that simple. And I can remember when I did mountain climbing, I had 31 different high altitude summit attempts, right? But I only summited 12 because we knew when to turn around when the conditions weren't right for avalanche or rock fall. And it was a slog. You can't breathe up there. You get nosebleeds. I mean, it's pretty hairy over 20,000 feet. But let me tell you something. Standing, witnessing the curvature of the earth and seeing the dark sky, much darker than what we see here at sea level, and feeling your feet on the ground was one of the most exhilarating accomplishments that I've ever had in my life, is high altitude climbing. So there was a lot of healthy doses of fear on the way up, but we had a belief in ourselves and in our equipment and in our training that it got us to the top. And a lot of people turn around at the first sign of fear, and sometimes they should. If there's a rock fall or the glacier's not melting quite properly or the seracs look uneasy. So I'm not going to say just close your eyes and run headlong into a chasm, but punch through that veil of fear. And I can guarantee you, whatever it is you're doing will be worth it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have a rough time getting to the top of a ladder, and now you want me to now I feel like I want to climb a mountain here. That's just
Go for it, and you
go
will,
for
I'll bet.
it. All right. So I'm sure you get this question a lot when you do podcast guesting here, but I like to put a little bit of a spin on it. A lot of people ask you, what's your hardest pitfall? What's the biggest problem that you came across? I like to put a little spin on it. What is the biggest pitfall you've had that you're actually proud of? Like, I'm glad I went through this pitfall because on the other side of that pitfall was something amazing. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you, John?
A few times. I would have to say patience. I wanted it all now. I made a joke about J. Paul Getty back in college, right? I wanted it now. I'm an entrepreneur. I've got my business. The door's unlocked. All my merchandise is out and ready to go. And I've trained my troops, our employees, and we've got everybody quality product, excellent service, and the opportunity for us to be part of your adventure, backpacking, climbing, whatever. And then the real sales come in. And it's like, holy cow, this is going to take years. I can't do this, right? You're joking about it, but the patience to see, don't worry about the daily stuff or even the monthly stuff. Wait and see what the bottom line looks like at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter and build on that. So I had to learn a lot of patience. And my wife sometimes still says, you're still like a B plus. You're not quite there yet, right? But that's probably what taught me the most in a startup, was just to be patient. Be patient. You're doing something really good and exciting. It's your life. You're going to be rewarded for your vision. And it may not always be money like right away, but the people that you meet and the customers and just the vibrancy of being in business, you can feed off of that. And the only reason our small business stayed open for 10 years, and I had the new owners tell me this, was because of the customer base that we had built the previous 23.
Mm-hmm.
We built trusting relationships with our clients, and they always came back. We developed repeat customers. And then what was really fun was seeing a customer's son or daughter have a son or daughter, like generational clients, and to have them come in when the young boy or young girl's going to join the scouts. And the parents, dad and mom, used to buy from you when they were going to Australia. And then they bought from you when they went on their honeymoon. And now their kids are joining the scouts, and they've come into your shop, your business, to patronize you. That wasn't just luck of the draw. That was the fruits of the labor. That was the perseverance. That was the belief that your business was going to make it. And I got to tell you, Jesse, that was one of the most, I'm in digital now, but I really miss the interaction of the customers. Customers were our lifeblood. They helped us send our kids to school. They paid my bills, my mortgage. They put food on my table. Those were the best people in the world because they patronized the business and we were good to them. Wasn't perfect all the time, but I can count on two hands in 23 years how many customers we really pissed off. Somebody you probably couldn't please anyways, but I'm proud of that record.
Yeah, we're not going to be for everybody. We just keep that in the back of our head when we're in our businesses and whatnot. Sometimes it doesn't match up, and that's okay. It happens. That's part of it. But we live in a world right now that's I got to have it now. I got to have it today kind of thing. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. But it's the people that know that it's a long-term thing that we're doing here. It's not going to be a short-term thing. Your first dollar is not going to be for some time. But when it starts coming, it comes on strong because you waited for it. And you built the relationships that you needed to build and you met the people that you needed to meet to make it all work out. And now here we are. I've been doing this for over 3 years, which is a huge accomplishment for me. I couldn't get anything done over a day and then giving up before I started all this. And now I'm 3 years in. I'm like, I'm still doing this. I love it.
But you've beat the odds because
Yes.
Everybody says, well, I'm going to try a podcast, right? And I think the average number of shows with podcasters, it changes a little bit, but the last time I heard, it was like 9 shows.
Mm-hmm.
So you are like in the upper 2 or 3% of podcasters, probably even smaller, because how many shows do you have total right now?
I think 215 right now.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Good for you and good for your guests because you built a rock solid show. That's cool, man.
Yeah. And if you look at how many, let's see, I think there's like 4 or 5 million podcasts out there, but only 500,000 of them are active. And if you look at those averages and those odds, it's because people give up after a few. It stays live. It stays
9
out there,
shows.
but,
yeah.
But people that are still actively putting out new content and new shows for their podcast, there's really not that many. And the average, if you average that out, yeah, you're right. Not all the people make it all the way. So
no, so kudos to you. You need to get out. You need to get one of those little packs of gold stars that they used to have in elementary school. Remember? And they'd put it on your paper. Sometimes you'd get 3 gold stars. So do yourself a favor, man. Put a gold star on your notepad.
There you go. When I get 5 of them, I get a gummy bear.
That's right. Scooby-Doo, brother.
Scooby snack.
That's right. That's right.
All right. That's awesome. Thanks for that. I appreciate that answer. It was really good.
Thank you.
So
you're welcome.
I'm going to go the opposite way now. You've actually been through a lot. You've had a lot of business experience, but do you have 1 or 2 things that really kind of feel like are a great accomplishment for you?
It didn't have to do with, I've got more than one, but it's a great question. I appreciate it. I was in a startup nonprofit, right? They're run a little bit differently from a for-profit, but some of the things are still the same, enthusiasm, teamwork, mission. And what our mission was, it was in Sarasota, Florida. Our mission was to help bring back international rowing to the United States of America that hadn't been here since 1991, right? We were building this Olympic location, Olympic venue, and I was tasked with being the volunteer coordinator. And so I had some phenomenal volunteers from age 14 to 90, and they were all ambassadors of the community. And when the governing authorities from Switzerland came over and we went through all the paperwork and, did all the things we needed to do to apply for that particular event, they were impressed with the people of Sarasota County, Florida, the volunteers. And the volunteers were a huge part of the success to bring in 2017 to bring the rowing back to the States. But those volunteers exemplified what a lot of entrepreneurs exemplify: pride in what they're doing, enthusiasm, a belief in a mission that seems impossible. And that was probably, as far as a leader goes or a startup guy goes, that was probably one of my proudest moments, being a startup guy, startup person. My small business in Florida, I think the accomplishment I alluded to a little while ago, Jesse, was the mountaineering trips that we used to do to South America.
Mm-hmm.
And we sold climbing gear. And the guy told me, he asked me a question one time about a piece of equipment, and I didn't know the answer. I'm thinking to myself, what the heck am I doing selling climbing gear? And I don't even know how to use it. So got a wild hair, booked a trip to Mexico, went down and used all the gear, and I climbed to 18,000-foot summit. And that was the baseline for taking people on adventure trips. I'm not even a certified guide or any of that. We would hire them in the countries we were going to. But I was so proud of those, because we didn't just take people for our business on vacations. We took people on life-altering adventures. And to be part of that as an entrepreneur, it just blows my mind. And I'm so proud of those moments. I can remember one customer, this one young lady who went on a trip. She was a park ranger in Florida, but a real small person. And she made it to the summit, right? And we're sitting at the summit. It's months and months of training. And wasn't sure she was going to make it, but we're sitting up there and all the clouds are like forming around us. And she looks at me and she says, "This is phenomenal." She said, "But I can't cry because my eyes will be frozen shut." She says, "And I've got so many tears right now." And she said, "Thank you." How many customers can we percolate to say something like that? We're still good friends. Her dad was a Boy Scout leader in Florida. But that moment, that one single moment that customer told me that, it was like, holy cow, we're making an impact in people's lives. So as a business owner, especially somebody with a new startup, you can be a very positive impact in somebody's life. And maybe you'll have that summit moment someday where one of your customers comes back, and they may or may not be crying, something as dramatic as that, but they may come back, people with etiquette, and say, "Thank you for helping us out. Thank you for your products. Thank you for your service." It's those kudos and those thank yous. You don't necessarily do it for that, because we consider ourselves at times the unsung hero, right? We're in the trenches, men and women, we're the small business owners. But there's something really delightful about that. And those two instances, managing volunteers to bring back international rowing and sitting with one of my customers watching the clouds form and disappear around us and getting a thank you. They don't make that stuff up. They just don't.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we do that, is to make it. That's one of the reasons why we do this, is to make that moment for somebody else and know that we were a part of that moment. We gave this moment to somebody else, and that makes us feel good as people, as entrepreneurs, because we were able to give that moment to somebody else.
Phenomenal. And you're so right, Jesse. You said it probably better than me, but that's everything we do in our lives makes an impact. And you have to decide, as a business startup person, you want to make a positive impact and you want to make a negative impact, because if you think about it, the positive impacts are going to get you to the summit. The negative ones won't.
No, the negative ones will make you fall off the summit, and we don't
Yes,
want to fall off the summit because
No,
that's a
we
long
don't.
way down.
It is. It's a hard fall. It's a hard drop, brother. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that. That's a great story. I'm even welling up a little bit just thinking about it, because that is so fantastic.
Me too. I remember you and I were sitting there talking on your show, but I remember that moment, and it does. It was, and you asking me that question in such an authentic, intimate way makes this show that much better, that we're able to share stories like that to your listening audience, and two men welling up inside because of an experience that they had in business. That's real.
That's very real.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so here's one of my favorite questions. Now, since we know that most of our listeners are new entrepreneurs, if you came across somebody that you knew was just getting started in their entrepreneur adventure, what one piece of advice would you give them? What steps would you have them take?
How much time do we have?
Oh, boy. Let's see here.
But only one. But only one. You know, it sounds probably trite. I think it would just be what Nike has as their logo, a little swoosh thing, and their mantra is just do it. Just do it. It will be an experience that you'll never forget. You will learn things about yourself that you never knew. You will learn things about other people, and it's an opportunity for you to make money, but also to improve your own skill sets. You know, you were talking about the fear and all this. If you're fearful of getting up on stage, or you're fearful that your bank account won't make it, whatever it is, just do it. Puts you in a different league. Not everybody wants to do a startup business. Doesn't mean that you're better. It just means that you're living your life a different way. So that would be my advice. Now, if you're, depending on what the product is or the business, I might have a different answer. But I would say 99.99% of the time, I'm just going to say, just do it. Find a way to do it.
Fantastic. That's awesome. That actually is very similar, and not that I'm trying to steal anything, very similar to my tagline for my podcast. I can, I am, I will, and I'm doing it today. We do things now while we're thinking about it. My son was 6 when he said that. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was having a rough time with his homework, and he just popped off with that when he was 6 years old. I was like, wow. So we started posting it all over the house and everything else. And we still live by that today. He's 18 now and learning to be a professional cook. And he still says that. As a family, we've really kind of taken that in. And now I've made it part of my podcast, because it's such a powerful thing for a 6-year-old to say, let alone the meaning of it, the meaning behind it. We do things now while we're thinking about it. Otherwise, we miss an opportunity, and we don't want to miss an opportunity. So we do it now. We do it today.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that. And that mantra lives in your heart and in your son's heart and in your family. So it's a good thing. But I just wanted to back up real quick about perfectionism, because that could be a fearful thing, right? But I'm gonna relate this to a military thing. So we'll kill two birds with one stone. You'll learn something about the military, but you'll also learn something about perfectionism. And I was in a field artillery unit. And in it was a howitzer, 200 millimeter howitzer, 400-pound shell that we could throw 25 miles away. And what you have to make sure that it hits the target is you have these guys or gals called forward observers. And they'll go to the target location or near the target location, and they'll watch and they'll send back the coordinates, right? So they plug in the coordinates, you fire the round, they watch to see where it hits, right? And you missed it. You're 400 feet past it. You adjust fire, right? They give you new coordinates, you fire off another round, and you're 300 feet closer. Right? It's not perfect yet. So then they call in the last coordinates, and it's right on target, and you win. You blow away the target. Now, business is not really like that, but if the forward observers wanted to be perfect, you might have been surrounded by the enemy in short order. You had to get those rounds out. You had to diffuse the situation, and perfectionism would have never have gotten them there. So you're going to make mistakes. You can spend month after month until the cows come home trying to get a perfect plan. And you don't need a perfect plan. You just need a plan, and you need to get started. And remember what General Patton said. Now, he's a military guy, right? A violent plan executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. And it's kind of the same thing. So perfectionism can be a serious double-edged sword because you want to do it right. But if you wait for right to be perfect, you're wrong. You need to get going. You need to get started now. And if you do that, you'll be way ahead of the curve. You could be months into your business already. But if you were waiting, you may not have even started yet. Just saying.
Yeah, no, that makes a perfect point there, perfectionism. And you'll see that a lot of people will hide behind perfectionism too, where they're like, oh, I'm going to wait until it's perfect, or I'm going to wait till this, and never release anything. And really what's going on subconsciously is they're scared to release anything, so they're waiting for the perfect time. How many times have you heard, oh, I'm going to run a business, but I'm going to wait for this thing to happen first?
Most of the time, yeah, a lot of times, yeah.
And it never happens.
or let's just say you had that idea, Jesse. You raised a good point. Let's just say you have that idea and you're thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, and 2 years later somebody does it, and they're the next multi-millionaire selling the widget that you had an idea to sell. And if you put those out in the universe, I don't know what you believe, and we're not going to get in anything spiritual here, but what you put out is pretty much like your picture. Look at that. What you put out may come back to you in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And then the thing I've heard too, I read this in a book too, where somewhere in the universe, somebody's going to do your idea. Now, is it going to be you, or is it going to be somebody else? Because the idea is out there, but I mean, if it's your idea, execute it on now, because somebody else will come up with that idea if you don't, because you put it out into the universe. Let's see what happens next. So
True. And the thing, but I always come up, I got an option for that, right? I always say, but they're not our team, which is true somewhat, but sometimes being that first one is a huge difference in business when it's something innovative, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for putting that out and touching on that. I appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. That's what happens, man, when you have an experienced podcaster. We get information, man. It's all on you, brother.
All right, so I have kind of a tradition that I like to do in my podcast. In the next 6 months, where do you see you and your company? What 6-month goal do you have for yourself?
$3 million in gross sales.
Well, you popped right off with that, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. But, the money's not the primary motivator, but that's our sales objective. And then our plan is to have a mini course on leadership up here real soon called the Brain Freeze. This is on neomasculinity.solutions. And then we've actually finished a college curriculum. We're looking at accreditation on information analysis and gender roles. Nobody's doing anything like that. They're all talking about it, but we've got a PhD level course that we've already written, AI assisted. And then we have the high school courses finished. It's called the Brainery. We train brains, not grains. And then we'll be working on the 8th and 9th grade middle schoolers. And then we'll be working on kindergarten through 6th. And what it'll be 4 silos, graineries, we call graineries. And there'll be consistency throughout the whole thing. And it's a reignition of intuition, scientific method, and gender roles. So that should be done. We're hoping by the end of the summer, but surely by the end of the year. And then I have a rock solid team, and it's multi-continental right now. We can do that when we're in the digital space these days. I have AI on board with us. We have a program, Interview Connections, which helped me to meet you. So we've got a lot going on, but the primary goal is to just help millions of families and men and women across the planet. We have a little Sentinel handbook. It's 9 languages. It's not a book on astrophysics. It's just basically a primer on how to spot unreliable information. and then how to use our gender roles to do something about it. How do we fulfill our roles as parents? A lot of cool things. So and then next year we'll start Task Force Zen, but we want to get this one off the ground first.
Fantastic. So here's what I want to do with you, John, is in 6 months, I'd like to have another interview with you.
Okay.
I'd like to see if you've reached those goals and what kind of new experiences you've had since this interview. Is that okay?
Put me down in your book. I'm ready.
Right.
And I'm old school. Look at this. Jesse, all my appointments come from the old dome. My team wants me to get more digital and all this, but there's still some old school things that I've learned that seem to work for me. So yeah, I'd love to come back on your show. And, and if we hit that sales mark, we may even do a live broadcast from, I don't know, Old Faithful, the Geyser, who knows? But yeah, we'll do something special for that show.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, John, this is your time to shine. This is a time where I want you to talk about yourself, how we get a hold of you, and all that good stuff. Okay, ready, set, go.
Okay, you can get a hold of me at JK Juliet Kilo at neomasculinity.solutions. That's my email address. I'll even give you my cell phone. It's 941. Don't abuse it. Don't call me after midnight Eastern Standard Time. 941-400-7333. And if I don't get back to you right away, or you want to leave a comment, go ahead and do it. And I'll do my best to get back to you. But visit our website, neomasculinity.solutions. We have a free lead magnet, but you can get that if you want. And then if you want to purchase the Sentinel handbook, because we're all Sentinels, it's $2.95. It's an ebook. If you speak Chinese, you can get one. Italian, German, Spanish. We got Hebrew, Arabic, but we've also got it in English. But pick yourself up a copy. It's not going to set you back, and you might learn something. And then just pay attention to what we're doing. Go online to that website, sign up. We're going to be having a newsletter. We're building a community. This is a true startup. The digital space, like we talked about, Jesse and I said before, it's not build it and they will come. It's build it and go out and talk about it, and hopefully they'll come. So please just take a moment out of your day, a couple minutes to do that, and help out the cause, because we really do want to protect families from all of the unreliable information. And there's 5 types. You can read about it in the book, but there's only one reliable information, and that's the truth. So we're just looking for the truth, and we want to help people in a massive way. And maybe we can do something to reduce all of this division and all of these hateful things that are happening all around the world. I mean, even friends in my own network the last 4 years, I feel like they've lost consciousness to reality. And I don't want to insult anybody. I'm not better than anybody. But if somebody tells me something that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up because it doesn't sound possible, I'm going to do my research. And that's all we're asking is protect your families, protect your loved ones from the greatest threat in modern time, which is unreliable information. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Exactly. All right, John, thank you so much for being an undiscovered entrepreneur and taking your time every day. This has been probably one of my most fantastic interviews I've had in quite some time. So thank you so much for that.
You're going to get me to well up, Jesse, but you're welcome. And I look forward to 6 months from now when we can come back and tell you about our success. And I appreciate you and what you do and helping entrepreneurs tell their stories, and even more so helping your listeners, the people that are in the trenches, help them with their startups. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, Skoobelievers, make sure you stay tuned for the wrap up. Okay, everybody. Bye-bye.
You got it.
All right, Skoobelievers, that was John. What a great episode. What a great conversation I had with John. Lots of energy. We kind of were able to match energies and really come up with something really awesome for you. But as usual, I have a couple major takeaways from this conversation that I had with John. Stop waiting for perfection. Someone else is already building your dream. John's message is crystal clear. A violent plan executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. While you're perfecting your idea for months or maybe even years, someone else is out there executing the same vision and becoming the next multimillionaire with your concept. You got to understand that when you put something out into the universe, if you don't end up doing it, somebody else will. So that's why it's so important for you to take action now. Your greatest obstacle isn't money, competition, or market conditions. The person in the mirror is your biggest obstacle. John built an $11 million business after being told it would never work, survived a traumatic brain injury, and is now targeting $3 million in digital sales because he conquered the one enemy that truly mattered: the naysayers, the lack of funding, the impossible location. None of those things stopped him, and none of it will stop you unless the person in the mirror becomes your biggest enemy. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for another great episode of the Undiscovered Entrepreneur Get Across the Start Line, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.